Today on Sekulow, the balance of power in Washington, D.C., too close to call.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
Hey, welcome to Sekulow, folks. We are going to break down the numbers for you. Listen, there was no red tsunami last night, which means we have no clarity on who will be in control of the U.S. Senate or the House. It looks like most people predicting the House by narrow margin, maybe like 220, maybe 219, maybe if you're lucky, 221. So that Republicans will end up, that Nancy Pelosi will be retired as Speaker of the House, and that Republicans will take charge of the House. That will be gridlock in Washington. So a lot of what we talked about, stopping bad legislation, will occur. The question is the Senate still. And I know people are down today, and I get it, because there were a lot of races that we were told by pollsters and leadership of the major party apparatuses that were in play that clearly were not. Like, the margins were just too big. And, of course, you can look at what happened in Maricopa County and say this is ridiculous that they are still I think they still have like over 300,000 outstanding votes. They announced
counting votes until Friday or Saturday.
And these are votes that did not go through the machine because 30% of the machines were not working. And that's what the number is now, because there was also confusion about, was it 30% of the locations?
And they sent the people to a location to vote again. They said, well, you're already voted on our rolls, so you can't take your vote.
Again, now, I will say this.
It's not going to be
the only place in the country that we had those kind of issues.
It is.
So it was not like there was widespread any problems.
No, and Arizona, as the numbers are coming in,
still looking pretty good. We're going to talk to Rick Riddell. Rick Riddell's going to join us. He's been all over Nevada and Arizona.
I just spoke to Abe Hamadeh, the candidate for AG, and he says that he thinks that he believes he's going to win decisively. Decisively being like maybe plus 10,000 votes.
Which means
he also thinks that Masters is going to pull it off.
And Kerry Lake.
Yes, but like with small, like you said, like you've been saying the whole time, this is a small margin race.
But remember, if we fast forward to Friday, and we got 51 without the runoff in Georgia,
that'd be big.
Don't downplay that too much, as that's a pretty big repudiation of Biden. I think what we did was we just expanded the map too far in both gubernatorial races. Now, there was some politics there because we gained some seats in New York, and I'm sure Lee Zeldin helped that.
Yes. Like
putting the money in statewide sometimes helps, even if you can't win statewide, because it keeps the momentum up, and you've got to build some momentum. So I get that. Obviously, DeSantis in Florida had a gigantic victory, a 1.5 million vote victory, and that worked down ballot there. So his whole team was reelected. And we saw the congressional races, too, there.
In Florida. What did you think?
Yeah, I think Florida, you can maybe say, is maybe the reddest or one of the top 3 reddest states in the country now. If you look at that map, you really only had a couple blue spots, even at places like Tampa and Miami-Dade, obviously.
That was huge.
That both going decisively for DeSantis. And as you said, then down ballot as well. Not just DeSantis, but DeSantis, Rubio, and so on and so on. Our friend Jimmy Petronas, he won by quite a lot. And it was interesting to see. Now, we'll see how Florida goes the next time around, but it is pretty interesting. You had such a swing from the last time where DeSantis won by 30,000 votes? Some like almost margin of error, small.
Yeah, and this time 1.5 million.
But I think that's obviously a direct referendum and a direct answer to his COVID policies. I mean, I think there's no way you can look at that and not say that's what that was referencing. That
he also built a bridge in 3 days to Sanibel Island.
Yeah. Strong leadership for sure.
Yeah.
He's proven to be the guy right now.
He's the guy right now. Yeah. Yes. Here's the question, which is how does this affect him long term? Future. How does it affect the former president of the United States, President Trump? How does all that play in? We're also talking about the possibility of the Senate still shifting without a runoff if Nevada and Arizona go Republican. Then the runoff in Georgia would give you another seat if you want it.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into all that, and we're going to take your calls at 800-684-3110.
Right now, if you count Alaska, because one of the 2 Republicans will win there.
Yeah, it's got strange system.
Probably Lisa Murkowski with the way it does the run-up, but we don't know. That's because that ranked choice. But so you're at 49, and like you said, you could get to 51 without the runoff in Georgia.
It's tightened up this morning, is the truth.
Yes. Honestly, I think things felt worse last night. Now when you just kind of take your deep breath and look and say, we can take back the House, almost definitely. and the Senate with a good chance. Yeah, I mean, don't.
Overnight, a major midterm victory, possibly setting up a preview for the next presidential election. In Florida, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis cruising to re-election in a landslide over Charlie Crist. He's projected to flip the key Miami-Dade County, the first Republican governor to do so in over a decade. He, along with Senator Marco Rubio, solidifying GOP control of the once swing state.
Republicans are advancing towards control of the House, but by smaller margins than perhaps some had forecast. The Democrats, meanwhile, have flipped a Senate seat in Pennsylvania.
Let's talk about the races that we're still watching this morning that are too close to calling.
All right, let's start in Georgia. What's left? Not a lot, 96% in. Where is it? Okay, we got red areas here. Those are Republican. Blue counties over there around Metro Atlanta. I'm going to show you where the remaining vote is. I'm going to turn the state on its side. The higher bars mean more outstanding vote. It is around Atlanta. That could favor Warnock when it comes in, but we'll see if anybody gets over 50%.
Just for the sake of argument, if Democrats hang on to the Senate seat in Arizona, and for the sake of argument, if Laxalt hangs on in Nevada, what that would add up to is 50 Republican, 49 Democrat, and a runoff in Georgia that would determine control of the Senate on December 6th.
Polling had this as a pretty tight, a 54% chance of Republicans winning the Senate with maybe a 50-50 or a 49-51 outcome. That is where we're headed right now.
Let's look at where we are in the House estimate right now. Republicans still have a lead. It's still leaning towards the Republicans. They could still get over 218. A lot of toss-ups out there. There's still at least 15 toss-up races that we haven't projected yet.
We need to look at who won today. Ron DeSantis, DeWine, these governors, Kemp. Abbott. Look at these governors. This is the path to the future.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. So this is where I think, again, we want to take your phone calls to 1-800-684-3110. What was the turnout? What was it like in your state? And were you surprised with maybe it was a congressional race, a Senate race, a gubernatorial race? Because in Arizona, almost half the vote is still out. You really almost have over 40% of the vote.
So Alaska has been called for the Republicans.
Well, it's been called for Republicans.
A Republican.
There's two because the ranked choice, Murkowski and
so that puts you right now at
49.
Yeah.
So you can, if you hold Nevada, which Laxalt's in the lead there, and Masters continues the path of when these votes have come in, he keeps gaining votes, and so does like Kerry Lake, so does Abe.
You'd be 51-49 without the Georgia runner.
You've retired both Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in this election.
So people should not be. I mean,
don't dance on the grave of Republican. Don't dance on the grave of Democrats yet. It's not. Again, it's not about turnout right now because you're not affecting anybody's vote.
The turnout was exactly what we thought.
Don't be so down if you didn't pull out every one of these races that are in tough states that if Republicans have never won before.
As you said, the polling actually showed which way it would break, and maybe they polled wrong, but none of them were really landslide.
We were always down in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it wasn't a
poll
ever
still
showed
a lot
us,
of people.
It showed there's a lot of people
maybe
still
tied, but never up.
It showed there's still a lot of people voting Republican in a lot of these areas, which is pretty interesting. Because the media, we were talking about this with some of our team, the media would like you to believe that in some of these places there are no more Republicans, there are no more conservatives. Where really the landslide states were the conservative states were Florida, Tennessee, maybe Alabama,
Ohio,
where there's always a strong Republican base.
Won by like 20 points, and J.D. Vance won by almost 10.
Yeah, I mean, the Vance victory, and that is one that I think people aren't talking enough about because that was something that everyone was kind of unsure about up until Election Day, and it was pretty clean.
What's interesting to me, though, also, and this is where the candidate choice comes in, and I think we got to talk about that a little bit, and we'll take calls at 800-684-3110. Georgia, Kemp wins by a huge margin. I mean, up double digits, I think. Is it still double digits? Will, it's pretty close. I mean, so he's up 10, and Walker's behind. Yeah. That means 10% of that, it's a big number. It's hundreds of thousands of people said, I'm voting for Governor Kemp. I am not voting for Herschel Walker. That is, to me, is very interesting.
And hopefully this also puts it into the charade of Stacey Abrams and Beto O'Rourke.
I think she's done.
I think both of them are hopefully going. No, I think both will probably run for president. I think both will probably try to go to do something else because why not? What else are they going to do? But at least shows a definitive end to her thoughts on controlling Georgia. I saw someone joke around on Fox. It was like she called to concede, and they said, what, for both elections? So remember, she was the person going around saying that the last time she ran, that it was stolen. But Stacey Abrams, I think it's an interesting way to kind of send her and Beto off into the sunset as these characters.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this, Jordan, because back on the Georgia thing for a moment. So the way it works there is it's got to be 50% plus one, right? 50% plus one. Doesn't look like at this point either one of them are getting it.
No one's getting that.
So there's only...
It's going to be a runoff. The question is, does the runoff matter? Now, of course, you want if Republicans are at 51, you would like to be at 52. Why? Because you got the Lisa Murkowski types, the Susan Collins types, so it makes it a little bit easier to get things through. So it will be heated regardless. Like there will be,
and money will be
gigantic, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Does Ron DeSantis play a role in that one?
He could. I mean, that's the question: is will he put his big victory on the line for someone like Herschel, who is? I mean, it's basically a tied race. And so, but I think that's getting over too fast. I think it's very different in Georgia if it's for the balance of power or not.
Yes,
momentum, just the whole feeling, because people at that point also can tune out.
Ideally,
like if Republicans do take the Senate by 51, and we go through this whole Arizona drama for a week, which is what it's going to be.
Yes, they've already said it, by the way. They said it's going to be the end of the week.
Right. So, if they do, can you get people re-energized enough to, even if we did just take back the House and the Senate, and they felt like we didn't do it in a way that as fantastically as they would have liked to do it? I mean, no one had a wave. The Democrats didn't have a wave either.
No.
It's just we're a very divided country. The close polls didn't break Republican.
That is correct.
So every poll that showed Republicans within one or two, we lost.
All right, let's go. You want to take a call?
We didn't win any of those races.
No.
And that's okay because they didn't say that you were going to win. They actually said you were going to lose.
Yeah.
I think the polling was off on like some of these gubernatorial, like Tudor Dixon,
way
off.
6 and 7.
New York was off.
We have a lot of people watching right now. I'm going to encourage you all because I know we're definitely kind of giving you what we feel is the true narrative of what's happening right now.
Yeah, I don't think you get any of that on cable news right now.
No, so what I'm going to ask you to do, if you are watching on social media, so if you're on Facebook, I'm going to ask you to share and comment and like. Do those things. That really helps to get into more into the algorithm. On YouTube, hit the thumbs up. You'll see the big thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up and comment as well. And if you're on Rumble, hit either, sometimes if it's on the app, it's the thumbs up. If it's on the website, it's the plus sign. Do that and make sure you're commenting in the live chat. We'd love to take some of your comments as well. But those different ways help get the word out there more as the numbers continue to grow, because we are telling you a little bit different of actually what's going on.
Give me a real analysis here. Now, let me tell you something else. I want to thank our friends at Rumble because, when you're figuring out what to say and what not to say, you don't have to worry about it. It's really a free speech zone. I want to talk about the impact.
Their biggest day ever yesterday.
We did?
Rumble.
What they had?
I don't think they put exact numbers, but just that they broke all their
records,
viewership records.
That's great. All right, so we're taking your calls at 800-684-3110. If Nevada, Jordan, does not go for the Masters,
you mean
Laxalt? Well, no, Laxalt I think will get it. So Laxalt up, Masters in Arizona.
Yep.
Then we're at a 50-50 where Georgia makes all the difference.
Right. I mean, you could again.
That's
if you're claiming Nevada, if we think Nevada, really, you could take that off the list. No one's taken off the list yet, so I don't want to do that yet. But assuming Nevada goes Laxalt,
what is the Nevada? I mean, what's the Arizona race right now where we are? We'll just get a set.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it right here. It's 9. Let's see. This was the last time it was reported with 66 reporting. It was 51-46, 926 to 836 with 34%. I mean, so many votes out.
Yeah,
there's 500,000 votes out.
And that's still the same. They have not updated the tally since that report.
And there's 400,000 votes out.
And those are for people who are obviously watching and listening live. Obviously, check if you're watching on the podcast later on.
Don't be if you're listening to our broadcast. I mean, right now, fine with the numbers, but these numbers are going to shift every minute. So there's going to be a dump.
People need to understand you're doing another podcast today.
Yeah, but I don't know when Arizona's going to dump the numbers. Yeah, I think we're getting too far ahead of ourselves.
Maybe days.
For Arizona? Could be.
Friday is what they said. Yeah.
What does this do for President Trump or not do? I think politically it's
not great.
Yeah, I think that's right.
If you were 100% behind Trump running again, but
does making an announcement next week with Georgia up in the air mistake?
If it's definitive, I mean, you're getting ahead of the election being figuring out who the bounces.
You advance in some of these candidates though that
those were all Trump guys.
All Trump and
yeah, I think taking too much away from him is also like
we're all a little in a
daze,
in a funk because of it not being really what we all hoped it to be, and I think that's okay to be honest with our audience. However, Pelosi potentially probably gone as Speaker of the House.
Chuck Schumer right on the edge.
Yeah.
Right
So
on
there
the
are
edge.
some wins here, and there's a good chance. There's at least a chance.
Republicans have control of Congress.
Right. And then,
At the end of this week.
Then that's a
so
win.
we won. I mean, it was worth all the effort. It was worth and it's worth also the blood, the loss. The kind of, you could go, you won. At the end of this week, we could have won the war.
Yeah.
We might have lost a lot of battles along the way, lost a lot of troops along the way.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's
That's
more
a
of
good
us
way to-
standing in Washington than there will be them, likely.
But that's a good way to say it. And like even
There'll
Lee
be more
Zeldin,
Republicans on Capitol Hill than
I
Democrats.
think you have to say about Lee Zeldin, who's a friend of ours and someone we work
He brought
closely.
people probably over the line.
Brought people over the line, and I think those 5 seats or so that switched to Long Island.
So we beat the head of the DCCC.
I mean, talk about that.
So I mean, that's a huge victory. So again, New York seat that'd be like the equivalent of again taking out like a Rick Scott for the Senate side. So just a huge race. I mean, those were those kind of wave moments. I don't know that we didn't see a ton of them, but there's reasons why as Republicans don't give up. I don't think it's the issues, the messaging. Now, what we did learn is a couple of things. One is abortion poll number 2, and only about 3% behind the economy.
So the suburban women, that was a big issue for them.
Yes. I mean, it was the number 2 issue in the country.
Yeah.
And not like with a 30-point difference either. Like almost the number 1 issue.
Yeah.
Just a few points off than the exit polls. Here's where we're also hurting in exit polls. Between the 18 to 29 vote, Democrats have a 28-point lead.
Big.
That goes up to, so with 30
That's
to
huge for the
44,
future.
that's like an our age demographic. Democrats shrinks down to a 2-point lead. But you would think, again, with a bad economy, especially with that group, I'd say when you start, older than 35, you start thinking a lot more about the economy. They still don't, they still are favoring Democrats slim. Then when you get 45 to 64, it's Republicans plus 11, 65 plus, Republicans plus 13. So they've got some big, remember, even when we're winning the age groups, we're not winning it the way they are.
Yes.
So they
that's an interesting phenomenon. But we've got a lot more analysis. We're going to take your calls also at 800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110. Also, don't forget, support the work of the American Center for Law and Justice. Just talking about the broadcast today. Look, folks, I mean, obviously a lot of analysis has gone into this. We have a whole support team behind the glass, so you see, of course, you see the three of us on the air today, but all of this work, and then all of our government affairs work, and all of the litigation, all of that, because of your support of the ACLJ. Then they're going to be doing their podcast this afternoon, producing a lot of content, our social media teams. So we encourage you to go to aclj.org. We're in a matching challenge. In November, December is how we determine our budgets for next year. Any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for aclj.org. And Logan, you want people to continue to share and like these feeds so it continues to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Please share, comment, give us a call, 1-800-684-3110.
When we see something, when we hear something, when we're concerned about an issue, we don't just talk about it. We do something about it. And that goes to our Government Accountability Project.
If we allow leaders in Washington, D.C. to make decisions behind closed doors, unaccountable to the people, then we are going to get skewed and corrupt decisions.
There are lots of other places that do lots of important work for America, but the ACLJ has taken up a lane which is irreplaceable.
The Freedom of Information Act, that's a statute that allows us to get information from the government. It starts with a letter from our offices in Washington to these agencies, and it says, give us this information on these topics. And generally, they don't. And then we go to court.
We go through a series of lengthy negotiations back and forth about what they'll give or what they won't give. We may get tons of information that's redacted, and we have to then go back and say, you redacted too much. We can't really find out what you're giving us because it makes no sense. So it goes through a process of litigation.
That is how you get information, and that office is going to be more active now more than ever.
The ACLJ has been extremely active in vigorously seeking to hold these bureaucrats accountable. We have filed hundreds of FOIA requests. We have received over 20,000 pages of documents in our litigation.
Holding them accountable, holding the Biden administration accountable so that all Americans are able to have faith in their government.
We will up our efforts. We will not stop.
You're finding a nugget in a gold mine. Occasionally you'll come up with something that is really a bombshell, but you have to persist in doing it, and that's what we do.
That's a little bit of what we do through our Office of Government accountability, and of course that comes under our Office of Government Affairs. So your support of the ACLJ supports all of that.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow, and we're going to monitor the numbers. I don't think on this show today, and we're done at 1 p.m. Eastern time, that we're going to have any definitive answer on Arizona yet. Nevada looks good for Republicans. That hasn't been put in our column yet. Alaska, they don't know the winner, but it's two Republicans battling it out, so that's now in our column. So we're at 49. The question is if you can. Looks like we're going to get Nevada, so maybe at 50. So then the question is it going to be determined by the runoff in Georgia or the remaining outstanding hundreds of thousands of votes in Arizona, which I don't think we will have an answer on until much.
You'd help
much
Arizona
later.
just to make it, chill compared to going into. Yes, obviously you want to win in Georgia, but
Listen, if we pull out Arizona, we're going to talk to Rick Riddell about it. Like
They're saying there's an estimated 800,000 votes still outstanding in Arizona.
I mean, that's a lot. That's
a lot of votes.
As many votes have been counted almost.
Kelly is up over Blake Masters by about 90,000.
Yeah, but when you have that many votes,
that's a lot.
It's almost the entirety of their winning percentages right now. So let's say right now it's, what does it say? 928,000 votes for Mark Kelly right now, and how many votes for Blake Masters?
927 versus 830.
And 700,000 are unaccounted for.
So that's
as many votes as come in for these candidates.
That's what I'm saying.
Is still outstanding.
And we know there was a mess in Maricopa, and they tried to keep the polls open late. There was a court. I mean, there could be legal issues there.
Got turned down.
Hopefully not. Hopefully the votes come in, they get counted, and the Republican wins.
They will, but they did not. The courts did not.
It's weird. I don't know about it.
It's just state laws are different in every state. Let's take a couple of calls.
It was very goofy what the videos. And we were playing this. It was the only place in the country that happened, but it's going to be a pretty significant place.
Could be outcome determinative.
Yeah, and I just if we get control of the Senate and the House, your hard work is worth it because ultimately you won the war.
Well, because Nancy Pelosi's retired.
Don't let CNN, MSNBC, even Fox, don't let them put you down too far because they try to pick too big of winners and losers.
Yeah, I think when you see something like a Fetterman win, it breaks a lot of people. It breaks a lot of people's hearts.
But if you win in Pennsylvania,
we said it was going to be very, very.
I know
difficult.
that, but I think when they just see these.
Oz never had a lead,
never once
in any poll.
Right. I'm saying that they made that one a very big one.
Of course, it was a big one,
and it just
you got to try and win some of those.
All right, let's take some calls, like you said. Let's go to Ronald in South Carolina on line 1. You're on the air.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Enjoyed your show very much and all the work you've done to get us to this point here. Really appreciate it, and all the other government watchdogs out there, too. My question is that because of the issues that many voters went to the polls for, that has been literally dumped on the country through the policies and the practices of this current administration, how come it was this big tug of war that went on, yesterday and
because the country is not a clear. The country's divided 50-50. I mean, when you really look at it, the country's 50-50, and then you're fighting.
The second most important vote was abortion.
Right.
So that hurts Republicans.
Yes.
So the number one issue hurt Democrats, and they're losing.
Right.
I mean, Nancy Pelosi's lost her job, and maybe Chuck Schumer too. So that's pretty big. So our issue on the economy, by being about 10% more important to voters than abortion, carried us over the edge.
Yeah.
Barely.
But we're fighting on the margins for percentages.
On the margins. And abortion polled way higher on exit polls. And I get that because if you called someone up randomly, it's kind of like calling them and say, do you support Donald Trump? You're also not going to say, like, oh, yeah, I'm such a big fan of abortion. That's not necessarily what people are voting on. I will tell you this. This is how much education is needed in the life fight. Okay? I mean, we couldn't pick the timing of when Roe versus Wade is overturned. And honest to God, I'll give up an election cycle over overturning Roe versus Wade. If
exactly.
That was
yes.
Long term.
Yes, no question.
That's more important than 2 years.
Yep.
And by the way, it may end up that we got overturned Roe versus Wade and we got back the House and the Senate.
Well,
so
that's why we're trying to,
think about that in a big picture. We overturned Roe versus Wade because of the judicial nominees that we had to fight hard for and took political hits over.
Yes.
From moderate voters, Russian, through and things like that. And then they overturned Roe versus Wade. A lot of confusion in the country. You get these ballot initiatives on,
which are totally confusing.
But even in Montana, this was interesting. The referendum to require care for infants born alive failed.
That's hard to believe.
By 5 points.
That means what? Lack of education, or not explaining it, or coming up with these initiatives too soon.
Too soon.
My view is on the cases.
There are a lot of them. They were triggered by the
settle.
Yeah.
Yes. They had the trigger laws. We should let the dust settle, and then
we're winning in a lot of legislatures.
Yeah, I think we're going to win in the legislature.
So like California, the perinatal passed.
Yes,
easily 65%. Kentucky Amendment 2, which would take a right of abortion is clear that's not in the Constitution. The legislature can legislate it. Failed only by a few points, but exactly kind of what we were predicting.
Even though Rand Paul won by what, 30%?
Like I think 15 or something big.
So
it was called immediately. Michigan, right to abortion, 56%. Yes, that's now codified in the Constitution.
So this is where
Montana. We talked about Vermont, right to reproductive autonomy. That's full on 9 months. 76%.
All right, we're taking your call.
Maybe not as shocking in Vermont, Michigan.
800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110. Your reaction to all this? You want to try to grab another one, Logan?
Yeah, we can go ahead and take one more call. Let's go to Nancy in Georgia on line 5. You're on the air, Nancy.
Hi. I just wanted to say I've been in politics for several years here in Georgia working. The Trump trashing Kemp and DeSantis, if you look, they both won big. And it's based on the fact that they have good policies. I think that's what Republicans need, to focus on their good policies. The Senate race, Herschel them need to come back with more policy fixes, and the fact that I do believe Brian Kemp is going to be the number one person. And he said already he would to help Herschel over the line.
Yeah.
Yes. I think he can now take a lot of his resources, which Stacey Abrams was matching, probably quadrupling.
Right. But now Brian Kemp could play a major role. But now
he's not worried about his race, which was...
If this is decisive, Brian Kemp may be the biggest player in the Georgia one.
Yes, but he doesn't usually take that kind of spotlight. He doesn't seek it out that way.
No.
And, again, he's a different personality. I don't know that Donald Trump was attacking Brian Kemp the last year and a half. I know he wasn't happy with the election stuff there with all those guys, but that was 2 years ago. He obviously started with DeSantis a little, but that's because they're both looking for presidential runs.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if DeSantis gets in, he's going to have to attack Trump if Trump is in. So, this is right. Politics is a big boy sport.
Full contact.
I think our folks are learning that more and more now, is that got involved with, Donald Trump and got involved with this, all the rallies and the fun, is how tough this is.
Yeah, the rallies are the entertainment. And
it's good.
Yeah, no, it rallies the troops, but you gotta have policies.
But it didn't matter that Barack Obama couldn't get big crowds.
It did not.
That's not what people were voting on. They weren't voting on Barack Obama's rally or Donald Trump's rally. They were voting on the economy, and then number 2, very close abortion. We lose on abortion.
I think
we don't win every economy vote either, because we're the tax cut party. We're not the party of more $1,500 checks,
which is what
a lot of blue states want.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to take your calls because we got a whole half hour of this broadcast up. We're going to be joined by Rick Grinnell a little bit later in the broadcast at 800-684-3110. So I want to encourage you to give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. Logan, tell everybody what they need to do if they're on our social media.
That's right. A lot of you are watching right now on social media. I'm going to ask you to do a few different things. If you're on Facebook, like, share, comment, do all those things right now. If you are if you're watching on Rumble, hit either the thumbs up or the plus sign. You'll see either one of those. Hit that comment as well in the live chat and comment on the post. And if you're on YouTube, thumbs up, comment, and obviously share as much as you can with your friends, because we are trying to grow this as much as possible. Also, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on Rumble, subscribe. Do that right now. If you're on Facebook and you're seeing this and you don't know about us, hit that like or follow button. Hit those notifications on. Do all those things you need to do to make sure we do the show each and every day. Visit ACLJ.org for more information.
Here's what I want to say to our ACLJ members, or for those of you that enjoy watching this broadcast. Whether it is going after the deep state, whether it is litigation that we're engaged in, whether it is defending the persecuted church and getting individuals out of prison in other countries because of their faith, whether it's training lawyers to fight for religious liberty, not just here in the United States, but around the globe, whether it is producing a daily 1-hour live television and radio broadcast heard on thousands of radio stations, on TV platforms, on social media platforms, your support of the ACLJ enables us to do all of this. We want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. We're in a matching challenge campaign. Any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for. Go to aclj.org today. That's aclj.org.
Keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, 1-800-684-3110 to join us on the air. We're going to be joined by Rick Renell, too, because he's on the ground in Arizona, and I think that
give everybody
some
an update.
confusion
I think it's
there.
important for people to understand where we actually are. I'm talking about all the media we
So
follow.
the House, we're going to wait till it shakes out. Obviously, Republicans are leading there. If
Looks
you look
like
at the
the House will
numbers,
go Republican.
Barely, but yes. I mean, it looks
So
like
that
at
means
least
Nancy
by
Pelosi's retired as the Speaker of the
by the
House,
end of the
assuming
week,
it goes, probably the end of the week. The Senate, which last night was looking
Republicans
pretty
are in the
bleak.
lead right now.
Yeah,
49-48. So
Republican.
we are waiting for the final outcome in Nevada, which could get you to 50. Laxalt's in the lead, and Arizona, where almost half the vote is still out. Masters is behind, but half the vote is still out. I mean, so
Right.
that with one big dump, that could switch. And a lot of those votes we know are from the machines that weren't working that have to be hand counted.
Yep.
And
they said that's going to be Friday
the
or
good news,
weekend.
it sounds like people did do what Donald Trump said, did do what Rick Renell said, did do what Carrie Lake said, which is
stay there and vote.
They got vote. They got their vote in on paper.
Yeah.
And
then the runoff in Georgia is going to be significant because it's a
either way, because let's say we don't pull off Arizona,
then it's the outcome
or for some reason
determinative.
Nevada goes.
So people need to understand that Georgia may or may not be outcome determinative, and this is what we mean by outcome determinative. If in fact Laxalt wins in Nevada and Masters wins in Arizona, you still want to win Georgia as a Republican because that gives you a bigger margin, 52-48. If Masters does not win in Nevada, assuming Laxalt does, then Georgia's outcome determinative. And that is going to be a gigantic fight. I'd love to hear from our friends in Georgia. We're on a lot of stations in Georgia at 800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110. Nevada and Arizona, too, would be good to hear from. Again, 800-684-3110. You want to take a call?
Yeah, let's go to the phones. Phil in New York on line 4. Hey, Phil.
Yeah, how you doing? Good. Thank you very much for taking my call. You guys are doing a great job.
Thanks.
I don't know that there will be a runoff in Georgia. That should not be taken for granted because apparently and unfortunately Warnock is very close to 50%. But if there is, I think, and I'm a fervent Trump supporter, that he should announce he is not running for president, get behind DeSantis, and then DeSantis should get very strongly behind Herschel Walker.
So this is an interesting political calculation.
If you do look at the number, by the way, I get how people get confused. You look at the number, you say Warnock is only like 0.6 from getting to 50.
Yeah, but there's not many votes.
There's not. We don't know if there's any. I mean, technically, the number is like.
Aren't they at 99% counted?
This is like looking for the absentee and like the true absentee.
So
like
it's
the
not
military,
likely that either
military vote can come in a little late.
What generally you've done Georgia politics? What generally happens in runoffs? Not usually good for Republicans.
It should be
But
in a
wasn't
state like
last
Georgia,
time.
but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So we have a history now. We know. Okay, Herschel is obviously not able to get to the same level as like the Kemp.
Right.
He's got some flaws. And everybody, we've talked about it openly, so that's not like a question. So does Warnock. I mean, they've both been accused by wives and ex-wife of violence. So you got that. You got extreme politics on both sides.
Yep.
Herschel very right, Warnock very left.
Yep.
Communication-wise, Warnock is better.
Order, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go and like,
Although
even if
Herschel
it's a
Walker's
complete,
decent in the
but
debate.
even if it's like a complete lie, he could deliver it better.
But Kemp, you got to understand, Kemp won in Georgia by almost 10%.
And he had to focus on winning because he had a machine up against him that almost
With
beat
Stacey
him last time.
Right. So he wins by almost basically double digits. And Walker is not pulling it out at this point without a runoff. And then the runoff significance will be the most if, in fact, there is a outcome determinative race in Georgia.
If it's not, if Republicans are in, have got to 51 without it, so Arizona goes our way and Nevada stays our way, then it's who's it worth more to? And I think it's Republicans to add another seat.
Yes.
Democrats.
Oh, I'd fight for that seat even if you were at 51-49. Absolutely.
And I think it's easier to get Republicans excited for it because it gives you. We kind of had a comeback at this last. By the end of this week, we might be feeling a lot different.
This is why you got to give real analysis.
You can't all just like freak out in one day.
Oh, and it's part of this is ratings for them.
Listen, you would like to wake up and not have this.
No,
Sure.
I know, but you get what? Guess what? We
But
live
don't
in America
give up
where it's-
yet, because we could be in charge of both chambers of Congress. That is huge.
All right, we'll take your calls when we come back. 800-684-3110. Rick Renell joining us.
Overnight, a major midterm victory, possibly setting up a preview for the next presidential election. In Florida, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis cruising to re-election in a landslide over Charlie Crist. He's projected to flip the key Miami-Dade County, the first Republican governor to do so in over a decade. He, along with Senator Marco Rubio, solidifying GOP control of the once swing state.
Republicans are advancing towards control of the House, but by smaller margins than perhaps some had forecast. The Democrats, meanwhile, have flipped a Senate seat in Pennsylvania.
Let's talk about the races that we're still watching this morning that are too close to calling.
All right, let's start in Georgia. What's left? Not a lot, 96% in. Where is it? Okay, we got red areas here. Those are Republican. Blue counties over there around Metro Atlanta. I'm going to show you where the remaining vote is. I'm going to turn the state on its side. The higher bars mean more outstanding vote. It is around Atlanta. That could favor Warnock when it comes in, but we'll see if anybody gets over 50%.
Just for the sake of argument, if Democrats hang on to the Senate seat in Arizona, and for the sake of argument, if Laxalt hangs on in Nevada, what that would add up to is 50 Republican, 49 Democrat, and a runoff in Georgia that would determine control of the Senate on December 6th.
Polling had this as a pretty tight, a 54% chance of Republicans winning the Senate with maybe a 50-50 or a 49-51 outcome. That is where we're headed right now.
Let's look at where we are in the House estimate right now. Republicans still have a lead. It's still leaning towards the Republicans. They could still get over 218. A lot of toss-ups out there. There's still at least 15 toss-up races that we haven't projected yet.
We need to look at who won today. Ron DeSantis, DeWine, these governors, Kemp, Abbott. Look at these governors. This is the path to the future.
Back to Sekulow. So we want to take you out west right now because there's two races there. So we're talking about Washington, D.C.
by the way.
And control Congress. And Rick Renell, who is our Senior Vice for Foreign Policy and National Security, but has also been in a lot of campaigns, a campaign expert, and communications expert. And Rick is on the ground in Arizona, where a little bit less than half the votes have not been counted. So, Rick, you actually tweeted out that Republicans will win the seat in Nevada, and Laxalt's in the lead there, and Arizona, where Masters is behind. But again, I said there's so many votes out. I mean, you got 40% of the vote out. So we've been trying to talk to our listeners this way, too. We would have all liked to wake up, Rick, this morning, and, we had the House, they had the Senate by many votes, and we didn't have to have this conversation. But we are still in the running to take both the House and retire Nancy Pelosi and the Senate and retire Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think, instead of giving you my opinion, how about I just give you some data? And the reality is that last night, when, we hit about midnight or 12:30, Blake Masters was about 275,000 votes down. And this morning, he is down by 89,969 votes. And we had a press conference this morning here in Maricopa County, and they announced that there are 450,000 ballots still to count, and we have been winning that ballot dump, every time they've done it, we Republicans, by 70%. So if you just assume the trend of what they've been doing, because they're all election day votes, not only is Kari Lake going to be the next governor of Arizona, Abe Hamadeh is going to be the next Attorney General of Arizona, but Blake Masters is going to win the Senate seat. So it's pretty exciting. I will tell you this, that Abe Hamadeh is leading the Republican ticket because he's only down by 3,987 votes.
I spoke to him this morning.
This is Kari Lake and Abe are for sure winning, and I'm confident of a Blake Masters win.
So let me ask you this, Rick, because you had the incidents in Maricopa County yesterday with the voting machines. People stayed in line, did what people asked, and voted. When do you think we're going to know? Because the media, including the conservative media, I mean, I'm going to say media generally, this is all ratings issues right now. They're trying to figure out when do you think we have a definitive position in Nevada? Because not Nevada, in Arizona. Because if Nevada does go to Laxalt, which looks like it is, and Arizona were going to go to Masters, then Georgia, although still very important, is not outcome determinative. When do you think we know this in Arizona?
You've been around a long time, Jay, to figure out this media ploy because they want everyone to be on pins and needles, turning on the television all the way through the runoff in Georgia.
Yeah, they've done a good job so far, I have to say, because it kept me up till about 3 a.m.
Well, I think the reality is that when we define by, definitive, we just now are trapped in the system where the voters, the local vote counters, are taking days and days and days to get through ballots. I think it's unacceptable. I hope somebody like Carrie Lake completely changes the system. But the long answer is we may not know officially until like Friday or next Monday. But I think the reality is we are about to see a changeover today in the lead, and we won't look back.
Okay. Of course, when you say Friday or Monday, it's as if, you don't work the weekends to get this resolved. I mean, the part of this that is frustrating is as soon as it starts in Maricopa County, you wake up in the morning, boom, it's open and it's not working. And you say to yourself, in the year 2022, can we not figure out how this doesn't make sense? And I felt bad for the poll workers because they were very few are out there, very frustrated by this. I'm talking about the volunteers. They're not trying to do anything. They're just trying to get the machine to work, and then people would go to another voting station, but they were already off the roll in the other. I mean, but it looks like people did vote.
Look, I'm here in Maricopa County, and I got to tell you, from the Starbucks barista this morning to my hotel maid, to the Uber driver, every single person is absolutely outraged that we live in America and yet we can't figure out how to count votes. I know elementary school students who can count faster than the Maricopa County counters. It's a disgrace.
I'm gonna say this also. Look, these races are really important, and as the numbers get clearer, you're going to see this is where the lawyers have to start looking very carefully when you get to these kind of narrow wins. So, everybody's on full alert. Don't kid yourself. I think people are more prepared this time than maybe last time.
Yes.
And it's also very limited. It's not a mass problem.
It wasn't 6 states.
And there was something in New Jersey for a little bit yesterday, and they got that fixed, but it was
and in
not
Pennsylvania, those weren't going to be outcome determinative.
No.
Like the ones that were misstated.
So, Rick, let's go to the overall aspect, and we're taking calls at 800-684-3110. I want to get your overall impression. So, Georgia, which we knew was going to be, Kemp wins by a big margin. Herschel Walker right now behind, but it doesn't look like that. I don't think Warnock gets to. Well, he may, but right now it doesn't look like 50+1. Georgia's either going to be outcome determinative for the Republicans or a little bit of a cushion. How do you see it?
Well, look, Adam Laxalt in Nevada is currently up by 25,000 votes. And what's left to count are our votes. It's rural, it's Republican votes.
Okay.
He's winning. So you can take that to the bank. And by the way, Joe Lombardo is winning. Those are two big red wins over two Democrats in Nevada.
Right.
And when you combine what's happening you'll hear today that Abe Hamadeh and Carrie Lake go up in Arizona. So when you combine this, look, I think that it was a big red wave. The entirety of television media in our country lives in New York City and Washington, D.C.
Right.
So the reason why they're saying there was no red wave is because in their neighborhood of New York and Pennsylvania, we had two big losses because they told us Lee Zeldin was going to win, and I think he came close, and he was a great candidate. We didn't win. Oz was a disappointment in that race. They didn't win. But look, Tudor Dixon in Michigan was up against millions and millions of dollars on the abortion issue.
Yes.
So all politics is local. I think that the reality is, when you look at this, Jay, Donald Trump handpicked in the primary Ted Budd, J.D. Vance, Adam Laxalt, and Blake Masters. I believe that all of them are going to go into the Senate, handpicked in the primary when they were not up. Some of them were down. Donald Trump picked them. Donald Trump delivered 4 major Senate candidates who turned out to be future senators.
No, that's true. I mean, especially if they win. And I'll take it a step further on this is, we said on this broadcast, and Rick was part of these discussions, that a red wave does not mean that you win by these super majorities. But if you flip the House and the United States Senate, that the Speaker of the House is not Nancy Pelosi and the majority leader of the Senate is not Chuck Schumer, that's a red wave. You've taken over both houses of Congress.
Well, and the investigation, the way that Washington's able to look into the Biden administration or to decide not to appropriate the funds to the IRS expansion,
these are huge.
That's already likely going to happen because of the House. But if you can get the House and Senate working together, I think, again, yes, it's some margins that are tighter. That's why Herschel's race
we
will
said
still
it was going to be tight. We said these were all, Rick, we said these were going to all, Jordan said it.
Yeah, I
mean,
no poll ever showed us, some of these polls never showed us even winning, and most of them showed ties. Yeah, so Rick, we won some, we lost some, and some we're waiting for.
Yeah, Rick, so we never said that this is going to, Laxalt is going to win by 14%. We said we think he would win by a couple of percentage points.
And he is going to win by a couple of percentage points. Let's be honest, too. The entirety of the U.S. media focused on Kari Lake as the Trump picked, endorsed, acting like Donald Trump candidate. They made Kari Lake the person that was running that most represented Donald Trump. She's going to win and be the governor of Arizona. And so I think you've got to also put into that Donald Trump win category handpicking Kari Lake, who was outspent and down in the primary polls.
Yep.
And he said, nope, she's the best candidate. I'm behind her. He did the same thing with Abe Hamadeh.
Yep.
Abe was not out in the lead. He didn't have the most money. He said, that's the candidate that's going to be the best. He did the same with Blake Masters. Blake was being outspent and was not up in the polls, but Donald Trump said, this is the guy. This is the guy that's going to do it.
It's interesting.
I believe they all win.
Yeah, it's interesting, of course, we don't have time to talk about it because we're running out of time on this segment, but Rubio in Florida and DeSantis, of course.
Vance in Ohio.
And Vance in Ohio. Those are huge wins.
I mean, you can say it both ways. And Rick, stay for joy. In one way, you can say, why were Republicans saying all these races like Tudor Dixon that were even wrong? We also, that forced Democrats to spend money there, like Rick was saying, 3 times the amount of money they would have spent. They didn't spend it in Arizona or Nevada now. They might be kicking themselves that they didn't spend it in Nevada. If Laxalt wins by like 25 or 30,000 votes, that's findable votes. That was means, and again, we were outspent, still carry the day. If Rick is right, we should be celebrating by this week.
By the end of the week, first or next, because they don't work over the weekends. We'll take your calls in the next segment at 800-684-3110. If you're holding, stay on the line. If you want to talk to us, 1-800-684-3110. Back with more in a moment.
Some races seeing major victories, including our next guest, who won a 5th term, beating her Democratic opponent by 20 points.
We feel confident that we're going to win the House, and we will fire Nancy Pelosi, and there will be a Republican majority, and that's really important. That was my top priority as the House Republican Conference chair.
If you add up the number of seats in which Republicans are now leading in the rest of the country that have not yet been called by somebody, it gets you to about 222, which is exactly what the Democrats have today.
We have the worst inflation in 4 decades. The worst collapse in real wages in 40 years, the worst crime wave since the 1990s, the worst border crisis in U.S. history. We have Joe Biden, who is the least popular president since Harry Truman, since presidential polling happened, and there wasn't a red wave.
The focus groups, everything we have is suggesting that voters are fed up with the economic situation and do not trust and do not appreciate what the Biden administration's plan for it is. They did not think Republicans had anything to do about it. They did not turn to Republicans to fix it.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp wins re-election in his rematch with Stacey Abrams.
Focusing on Stacey Abrams for a moment, Janelle, is this it for her? Is her political career done, or is she going to pull a Beto and try to run unsuccessfully for something for a 3rd time?
She may, but I believe her political career is done. I think it was done a long time ago. I think it started when she said that Georgia was the worst place to live.
In Florida, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis cruising to re-election in a landslide over Charlie Crist.
Florida is a red state. Miami-Dade has been trending Republican for a really long time, and it is a 70+% Hispanic county.
The positives are Republican governors did well. Greg Abbott won in Texas for his third term, and you're going to be hearing a lot about Latino vote. Republicans did incredibly well on Latino vote in a lot of those swing areas, and they solidified in Texas and Florida as well.
Take your calls. Give you that opportunity to speak, ask questions, make comments all over the country.
A lot of people on social media platforms and a lot of people on radio and satellite radio as well.
Because a big race, and I want to go to Cassandra first in North Carolina. It was a big race with Ted Budd. North Carolina was one that you wanted to hold that burst seat, has been trending Democrat for the last few election cycles. Ted Budd won pretty early in the night. It wasn't like right away, but it was pretty early in the night. So, Cassandra, welcome to Sekulow. You're on the air.
Thank you, gentlemen, for taking my call and for all you do.
Thanks.
I just wanted to say that in our instant-minded society, I think we need to remember that the battle is not going to be won instantly. This is a battle that's going to be won in increments and degrees, and we need to stay on the line and look to the horizon.
I think you're exactly right. We overturned Roe versus Wade this year. It sent shockwaves through it, good and bad. People freak some people out, voters out. Others were like, we don't exuberant and ready for that next battle in the state. Okay, so that you had that. Then you have, of course, the Trump factor. Then you have these new candidates, many of which might win, like Rick was just going through. So the media quick to jump on this and that. Again, that's why we're bringing you a totally different analysis than anybody's brought, which is that at the end of this week or Monday, Republicans have a very good shot of controlling both the House and the Senate. These House numbers are a little tougher to figure out right now.
Yeah, because
there's so many.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Donald in South Carolina.
Yeah, hey, Donald.
Hey, it was great to have you have the opportunity to speak to you. You guys do great work, and we are really thankful for what you do. I just donated this morning, by the way.
We appreciate that.
Have a question, and I was really pleased to hear Rick Grinnell and because he uplifted my spirits today by hearing what he just said. But I have a question about Georgia, and it's a question about the numbers. I'm an African American. Mr. Kemp got 2.1 million votes yesterday, and Herschel Walker is at 1.9.
Yep.
So that means that 200,000 people went in the voting booth and voted for Mr. Kemp, and they didn't vote for Herschel.
Right.
And I think that's a strategic question that someone needs to answer.
Yes.
I mean, either 200,000 Democrats went in and didn't like Ms. Stacey Abrams and they voted for Kemp, or 200,000 GOPers went in that booth and voted for Mr. Kemp and didn't vote for Herschel, and this race could be over right now.
Yeah, Donald, or both. I mean, I think there was.
Well, there were 80,000 for a libertarian. So take out of the 200,000.
You had an 80,000 libertarian.
80,000 went there. So
I think there was some anti-Stacey Abrams voting on Democrats, where she was scaring them with some of the statements she said about, Georgia being the terrible place to live. And I think people are worried about the economy.
She got desperate and started making crazy statements.
Yeah. So I think her candidacy kind of went off the rails a little bit there at the end.
It was clear she was going to lose.
Also, on the other hand, I think you do have people that voted for Kemp, but they could not pull the lever for Herschel Walker. So now what is going to be significant there?
Yeah, there are people I'm sure left it blank.
Left it blank. So here's what's the aspect of this. If Arizona and Nevada go Republican, it'd still be nice to win Georgia in the runoff because it gives you a 52-48 margin, but it's not outcome determined.
Our attention then. We can all refocus.
If we don't win Nevada, if we don't win Arizona, then Georgia's outcome determinative.
Yeah, and
you got to pull out every legal stop you got.
That's what he's confident in Nevada. And he was confident in Kerry Lake and Abe, but he did say it looks like Blake can do it.
Yeah, the
numbers are out
Rick
there
said
for,
there. He
for
said,
it to be a possible.
Abe, yes. Kerry Lake, yes.
Rick,
and that's what he thinks.
Blake, we know the numbers are out. There's enough numbers out to that should. It's not even too close to call yet. It's like if 50% of the elections. It's insane.
Yeah, it is unreal that this is still a problem. All right, let's take Dan's call in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Dan.
Hi, how you doing?
Great.
I'm a member of the ACLJ and really approve of what you guys are doing.
Thanks.
My statement is that we lost the battle here in Pennsylvania, but we got high hopes we're going to win the war.
Well, and I think, Dan, we've always done this in Pennsylvania. If Donald Trump won it in the first 2016. He lost in 2020.
Always close.
If you can make the Democrats have to spend the hundreds of millions of dollars that you got to spend in Pennsylvania, which is what it costs, we keep expanding our map. It does not mean you win when you expand your map. It just means they're scared that they're going to lose. Like, even though Lee Zeldin lost, a lot of Democrat money went to Hochul.
But also, Lee Zeldin lost, but a lot of there was like five House seats picked up because he did so well,
including the head of the DCCC losing.
Yeah, that's a big loss too.
Yes, because he had as many resources he wanted.
So
some of it is just, again, when you play in more states, you're going to have more losses.
All right,
I would have liked to see a bigger number in the House, especially. I thought remember 6 months ago we thought we couldn't even take the Senate.
Right, but the House we thought. Well, you and I we've been very cautious.
But because I didn't see any polls showing any 10-point leads for us.
So
some for them that we cut into. But, if you cut into Gretchen Whitmer's, I would have loved to see Gretchen Whitmer lose, that donated to Dixon. But the truth is, we made them have to fight that out.
Yeah.
Those are all resources that didn't go to Arizona or Nevada. Just remember that. That's how you've got to think about this. As we expand our big tent party, and you can see the Republican Party is pretty big tent, that you're going to have more losses. You can still win, have more wins than losses, which I think we will come out on Election Day. I truly believe that we are going to have more wins than losses. But we played in states that we've never played it or just recently have been playing.
Well, New York is one of them.
Yeah, that's really like...
And the overwhelming win in Florida. Let's take Linda's call from Minnesota, line 4. Hi, Linda.
Hi, I'm going to jump right into it. I want you to help me understand something. The Republican Dr. Jensen supposedly lost. What I don't understand is that Walz would not debate him. Pretty much only ads you saw on TV were about killing babies. So many people, I'm in the retail business, I'm out there all the time, and staunch Democrats that used to come in there and didn't want to talk to me came up to me and said, we got to get this guy out of here. I mean, people are being murdered in the womb. They're being murdered in the streets. There's streets named after criminals and all that. Help me to understand. How does this happen? How?
Because you live in Minnesota. It's pretty blue. I mean, it was the home base of the Black Lives Matter movement, burnt down their entire city, didn't rebuild it.
Yep.
Still boarded up. I don't know what part of Minnesota you're in. It has a kind of an independent leaning state. You can sometimes get... I think that's why Republicans have hope there always, because you never quite know. It's like the state level.
Yeah.
But it's Minnesota. It's you put some interesting people before. And I think, too, a lot of these places have lost population.
Yes, big demographic shifts.
And the people who have stayed behind are the harder lives. I think we saw that probably in New York. It looks like they lost about 1.5 million Republican
Which is
votes.
what DeSantis won by.
And I'm not saying everyone, but
no,
literally over 1 million Republican voters left New York. I would imagine Minnesota might not be that amount, but
close.
Not debating is also a strategy. I'm not always against that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not sure you have to.
Some of these debates, I think, is just out of control. And they're a waste of time.
As we end the broadcast, Jordan and Logan will be back on the air this afternoon on the Sekulow Brothers podcast. Go to SekulowBrothers.com. Tells you all the places you can download it as a regular audio podcast, or you could see it on Rumble, where it's often featured, and on Facebook and YouTube. So we encourage you to check out SekulowBrothers.com. ACLJ Action moving forward. You should get information there at ACLJaction.org. And let me also say, we're in a matching challenge campaign. And November, December are the 2 months that set our budget for the whole year next year. Support the work of the American Center for Law and Justice. Jordan's going to let you know how you can do that. We encourage you to do it today.
All right, folks. The number you call, or you go to ACLJ.org. That's the best place to go. You'll see the matching challenge right there at ACLJ.org. And again, you can double the impact of your donation. And this is a great time to think about, maybe you've got to cut back on your donations, but you still want to give. $10 donation will be matched by another donor. That's like $20. $50 will be matched by another donor. That's $100. Be a part of it at ACLJ.org. There's a lot of battles to fight.